We begin today the Gemara on Daf Tzaddik Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. We're in the middle of the sugya of the sources in the Torah for Tchiyas HaMesim and other matters related to Tchiyas HaMesim, which is what the Mishnah, the beginning of this Perek, speaks about. So the Gemara brings there, Sha'Allah Kali Putra Malkese Es Rab Meir. So this was a queen, some say from Mitzrayim, others say from Yavan, from Greece. So she asked Rab Meir, Amra, so she said as follows, Yedaina, this I know, in other words, she believed in this, the Chaye Shachvi, that the ones that are dead will be revived. She believed in Tchiyas HaMesim. And she brought the source, the Chsiv, the Pasuk says, Vayetzitzu Meir, and they will sprout out in the city of Yerushalayim, Ke'esav Haaretz, like the grass that grows from the land. And what this means is, as Rashi here brings, that the tzaddikim that are buried in other places, the Eibusher is going to make them tunnels underground, and they're going to roll and come to Eretz Yisrael, and there they're going to sprout out. But Ella, she says to Rab Meir, my question to you is, when they get up at the time of Tchiyas HaMesim, oimdim arumin, are they getting up undressed? Or they're going to get up dressed? Amar, so Rab Meir answered her, kavachaymer mechita. We can learn this with a kavachaymer from when one takes a kernel of wheat and plants it. You take a kernel where the shells and the peels of the kernel is removed and you plant it in the ground. So then yaitze, how does it grow? It grows with the peels, with the husk, and with the, so then it grows beautifully. Tzadikim that are buried in tachrichim, in dressed in garments. Alachas kama v'kama. Most definitely, by Tchiyas HaMesim, they're going to get up with their garments. Another discussion, Amalei Keser, Rabbi Gamliel, the Caesar, said to Rabbi Gamliel, Amrisu de Shach v'chaya. You say that the ones that are dead will get up by Tchiyas HaMesim. But Ha'ava Afra, they turn into dust. Afra Mika Chaya, dust. Could there come any life from dust? Amra le Brate, so the Caesar's daughter says to Rabbi Gamliel, Shafke, leave my father, you don't have to answer him. I'll answer him. And she says the following analogy. There are two that make pottery in our city. One can make pottery from water. And the other can make the pottery from clay or from water and sand together. Which one is more praiseworthy? Which one is doing something that's a greater wonder? Amalei. So the Keser says, the one that could make this pottery out of plain water. Amalei. So now his daughter said, tsar kol shekain. So the Eibishter that creates a human being from water, and Rashi says this refers to the tipas rucha from the zera that creates a existence of a child and of a person. So definitely Hashem could take from afar, from earth, and create the life at the time of Tchiyas HaMesim. Now, the Bei Rabbi Shmuel, by Rabbi Shmuel, they taught and said that the kavachaymer that was said to explain the concept of Tchiyas HaMesim was a different kavachaymer. Kavachaymer meklis chochis. The kavachaymer was given from a glass vessel. Ma klis chochis, just like when it comes to a glass vessel, sha'amalon beruach. So in order to create the shape and the size of this glass vessel, so the way it's done is it's heated up in the fire, and then you blow into it, and this is how it expands, and you create its size and shape. Basa v'dam, again, so you read it together. Sha'amalon beruach basa v'dam. It's created by when you blow from a human being. Now, nishberu, when the glass breaks, yesh len takana. It could be fixed. You could take the glass pieces and melt it and then shape it again. Even though Rashi he brings from a Gemara in Chagige that it's not so easy to shape it again, but it could be. So yesh le takana basa v'dam. Yeah, so basa v'dam could come and fix this. No, sorry. Okay, yesh len takana. This could be fixed. Basa v'dam sheberucha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So a human being that is created by the Ruach of Hashem, not the Ruach of a Basa v'dam. It's the Ruach of the Eibusher that creates him. Alachas kama v'kama, most definitely, after he passes away and he becomes offer again, the Eibusher could create him again. So these are the two mishalim here that are being used for Tchiyas HaMesim. There's one place in the Sikha and Chelik Yudches Parshas Chukas where the Rebbe explains that the two mishalim is not stam mishalim. B'chlal, all the discussions here in the Gemara regarding Tchiyas HaMesim, each point the Gemara brings about Tchiyas HaMesim is telling you a different aspect about what Tchias HaMeisim is. And here as well in these two Mishalim, the Rebbe says that it's two different interpretations of Tchias HaMeisim. One interpretation is that the inyan of Tchias HaMeisim is like a potter that's creating pottery from Ofar, which means that the way to understand Tchias HaMeisim is that the person that comes Lasad Lavi and Tchias HaMeisim is not a Metzias Chadosha Legamri. It's not a complete new entity. Like when you take Ofar and you create pottery out of it. But the second mashal of taking glass that breaks and then you can create a glass out of it again, after a glass breaks, it's really Ois Metzias, it's totally shattered. You have to gather it again and melt it and then create a new glass. It's like a new Metzias Mamish. So this mashal is expressing that by Tchias HaMeisim, it's in a oifim where it's like a Ishavas Chadasha, it's a Metzias, it's a new Metzias Mamish. And there's a discussion about this in the Farshim. I don't know if the Rebbe Mamish brings this in the Sichib, and you get to Tchias HaMeisim, Lasad Lavi. After Tchias HaMeisim, do you have to have a Kedushin again? To be Mekadosh your wife again, and other details that relates to such kind of questions, benigay to if it's a new Metzias or not. Right, another discussion. Amalei minil Rababi, the heretic said to Rabami, Amrisu, you say the Shach Vichaya, that the dead will stand up for Tchias HaMeisim. But for Hava Afra, the Afra Mikachaya, from dust could anybody live? Amalei, so Rabami answered, I'll give you the following mashal. A king that says to his slaves, build to me a nice big palace. But where is this? In a place where there's no water or dust of earth available there, so they don't have available these materials that they need to build. But nevertheless, they went and they built, and even in such a place. The Yomim, days later, Naflu. It collapsed, it fell apart. So Amalahem, he says to them, Chazru ubanu, now go and rebuild for me a palace. Where? In another place. Banu I say, b'makim sheyesh oframayim. In a place that you do have water and earth available. Amrullah ein ani yechaylim. We can't build it here. Ka'as alein. So the king got angry at his slaves. V'amalahem, and he says to them, b'makim sheyemayim v'afa b'nisem. In a place with no water, with no earth, you were able to build. Achshav sheyesh mayim v'afa. Now I'm demanding of you to build in a place where there's water and there's earth. You have the materials available. Allah has kama v'kama. Most definitely you could build it. So what's this mashal coming to say? So Rashi says that when the Eibishter creates the world, so he creates the world from nothing, from a place of toiv avoyu. The world didn't have anything. From toiv avoyu, the Eibishter comes and creates the world. So if the Eibishter could create the world, yesh ma'ayin, from nothing, definitely Tchias HaMeisim. Now when you have a world that's already in existence, the Eibishter can make Tchias HaMeisim from the offer and the ma'ayin that exists in the world. Or the other pshat, Rashi says, going back to similar to what it said before, that it refers to this, that the Eibishter creates a person from a tippa ketana, from just a tippa. And so definitely now the Eibishter could create Tchias HaMeisim, a life that comes from offer. The Gemara goes on to say, if you don't believe this, tzei lebika, go out into a valley, ure'ei achbar, and you'll see this achbar. This achbar is simply translated as a, how do they translate it there? This achbar? It's not usually a achbar is a rabbit or some kind of squirrel or what? Not squirrel, no. But over here, this achbar is something unique. Shahayim chetze basar. It's a creature that's created from earth itself, and you'll see it. And the way it develops today, you'll see that it's already half developed. It's already a body of a achbar basar, and the chetze adama, the other half of it is still earth. And then lamacha, the next day, hishritz, it continues growing. V'nasa kule basar. And it turns completely into a creature, into basar. What exactly this creature today is, I'm not sure if anybody knows today what this is, but they bring over here some kind of a translation. Eichem Herren, I don't know what this translation is. Huh? Yeah, they translate scroll, but it's not a regular scroll. That's a whole discussion over there. They think the Rambam brings it. This is a Pesapella, and he saw this in Mitzrayim. This, how this develops. Al-Kapanim. So just like it could develop, we see that it could develop, this achbar develops from Ofar, definitely you could have Tchias HaMeisim. Now Shemet Taimar, if I'm bringing you the source from this achbar, so you may argue and say, Lizman Merubah, that this takes time to develop. So maybe Tchias HaMeisim should also be over a period of time. So he says to him, no, Alei Lahar, go up to a mountain, Ure'ei, and you'll see, Shayim, Ein Boi Elach Hilazan Echad. in the place where the chilazon is. The chilazon is actually the source from the fish or a snail that you take from it the blood for the tcheles. And you'll see just one chilazon there, and then lamacha, the next day, yardu gishamim v'nismala kulach chalzainis. And it'll be all filled with chilzainis. You have the eggs that it lays, and then from this, overnight, it gets filled, and it all grows from one moment to the other. And that's how Tchias HaMesim is going to happen. A heretic said to Gvia ben Psisa, this was his name, and Rashi says that the Gvia ben Psisi had his name because he was hunchbacked. And he said to him, Vailochain Chayavaya, woe to you, Chayavaya, referred to them, to Yidden, as the ones that are Rishayim, Tamrisam Meisen Chayin, that you say that the Mesim will get up by Tchias HaMesim. The Chayin Meisi, the ones that are alive die. The Meisen Chaya, you can say that the ones that are dead will then live. We see that the nature of the world is the opposite. The ones that are alive, they pass away. But how do you say that there's a concept of Tchias HaMesim? So Amalek, Gvir ben Pesisa said to him, woe to you, Rishayim, that say that the Mesim will not live. One that did not exist. Hashem could give life and could create him yesh ma'ayin. So the Have Chaya like Kol Shekain. So one that already lived before. The fact that Hashem could give him life again, most definitely the Eibishter could create this and that he could have this kayach. So you see over here from another point, from all these mishalim and all these proofs that the Gemara is bringing, that the inyan of Tchias HaMesim is not just something which is an amunah, a belief, one of the Yud Gimel Ikri amunah, which is, it says in Torah, but the Gemara is going out of its way to explain that even mitzad Welt, mitzad the gather of Welt, mitzad explaining of how the world exists, we can understand that the inyan of Tchias HaMesim is going to be. That's how the Rebbe explains this in one place, why the Gemara goes through this harichis. We should see that the inyan of Tchias HaMesim could be explained in the gather of the Metzias of the world. Amalei, so he said, Chayev Karasli, you're calling me a Rasha, person that's a Chayev. Ikaimna, if I'm going to get up at Tchias HaMesim, be'itna bach, I will kick you, I will hit you, upashitna lak musach minach, and I'll get rid of your hunchback. Amalei, so Gvir ben Pesisa said, no, Adarabbe, if you will do this, you will be a very good doctor, and you'll get a good reward for this. So now here, the Gemara brings the famous story about Gvir ben Pesisa. Tana Rabbanon, so we learned in the Braise, this is actually in Megillus Tainus, where it brings all the dates in the calendar of the year where there are things that happen to Klal Yisrael, and because of this, you're not supposed to fast on that day. So there it says in Megillus Tainus, Ve'esrim va'arba b'Nisan, on the 24th of Nisan. The actual girsa there in Megillus Tainus is Chamisha, Esrim v'Chamisha b'Nisan, and 25th of Nisan. Or there's an over there, the girsa is actually that it was in Sivan, 25th of Sivan. It's Natilo dimusnoi mi Yehuda mi Yerushalayim. It was removed from Yidden, those individuals that were challenging the ownership of the Yidden in Yehuda and Yerushalayim, and they came to Eretz Yisrael and to Yerushalayim to come and take over the country and to say that it belongs to them. And this happened a few times. One was Kishabo B'nai Afrika Lodanim Yisrael, the people of Africa, from North Africa, they came to have a judgment with Yidden. Ifnei Alexandrus Moikdan, and they came in front of Alexandrus Moikdan at the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. I think, no, Alexandrus Moikdan, wasn't he? I believe
famous Alexander?
Yeah, or maybe this was later, because Gvir ben Pesisa, I'm not sure exactly when he was. So when they came to have a judgment with Yidden regarding the ownership of Eretz Yisrael, and some say that these Bnei Africa, what was their taina? Amrullah, they said, Eretz Canaan shalanu hi, Eretz Canaan belongs to us. The Chesiv, the Pasuk says, Eretz Canaan l'gvulei seha, and Eretz Canaan, it's the land of Canaan, on all its borders. And Canaan avun the Hanu Inshiav. Canaan is the forefather of these people themselves, coming from Africa. So who are they? Some say, we had in last week's parsha, Rashi says that it says the seven nations, it doesn't mention Girgashi, because Girgashi amad pinam ipneim. Girgashi ran away. So where did they run to? They ran from Eretz Yisrael to North Africa, and these were the descendants of Girgashi that came back to claim Eretz Yisrael. That's what I saw about chat. So Amalahu Gvir ben Pesisa l'chachamim. Gvir ben Pesisa said to the chachamim, Pnu li rishus Give me permission, and I will discuss this with them. Alexander Smikton, in front of Alexander Smikton. If they will defeat my arguments against them, so Amra, you'll say, you only defeated a plain person and let us deal with it. But if I will defeat them, you'll say to them, that it's the Torah of Moshe that has defeated you.
This is Alexander the Great that the Yidden made that they will name their kids
after him, after Alexander. Could be, yeah. So Nasra Rishus, the Chachamim gave Rishus to Gvir ben Psisa, V'holach v'danimon, and he went to discuss this with them. And he said to them as follows: From where is your proof that you have a claim to Eretz Yisrael? Amrulai min Torah. Our proof is from what it says in the Torah. The pasuk quoted before, Eretz Canaan l'gvul. Amalahan, so Gvir ben Psisa says, Afani lo yavi lechem raya ela min Torah. So I'll also bring you a raya only from Torah. Shenema, the pasuk says, Vayomer Arur Canaan Eved Avodim Yilecha. Noach says that Canaan is cursed and he's going to be an Eved Avodim to his brothers. Now, so, if Canaan and his descendants are really Avodim, Eved Shekana Nechasim, an Eved that acquires any possessions. Eved Lemi Unechasim Lemi. Who is this slave owned by, and who are all the possessions he has owned by? And not only this, Shaharei Kama Shonim Shaloi of the Sunu. The many years until the Yidden came to Eretz Yisrael, and you did not serve us as a slave the way it should be. And if so, you really owe us even more than just the fact that the land of Eretz Yisrael, it's Eretz Canaan, belongs to us because whatever the Eved owns belongs to us, but also the additional time you still owe us more. Amalehem Alexandris Malke, Alexandris Moikten. So he says to the Bnei Africa, Achzir Olem Tshuva, give them an answer. Give Yibam Psisa, that is an answer. Amrulai, they said to Alexandris, Tnal Lanus Man Shloisha Yomim, give us 3 days. Nasan Lehem's man, he gave them this time, Bat Guvle Matzu Tshuva. They tried and they couldn't give an answer to this argument of Gvir Psisa. Miyad Barchu, they immediately escaped. V'nichus Tadiseyen, Kishen Zruis, they already had their fields planted, they all left it. Karmein, Kishen Tentuais, their vineyards planted as well, they left it all. This was a Shemitah year, which was very beneficial for Yidden, that they had already everything planted and taken care of them for Shemitah when they can't plant themselves. Another story with Gvir ben Psisa, Shuf Hamachas Ba'al Bnei Mitzrayim Lodnim Yisrael of Alexander Smikton. The Mitzrayim came with the same kind of argument by Alexander Smikton. Amruloi, and they said to him, Harei Yoim, it says in the pasuk that Vashem Nasnas Chayna Am Be'enim Mitzrayim Vayashilim, and the Yidden, they able to place the grace of the Yidden in the eyes of Mitzrayim, and they lent them all their money and everything they had that they gave Yidden when Yidden went out of Mitzrayim with the Rechush Gadol. So the guy said, "No, tunu lanu kesef v'zav shenashtaltem mimenu. Give us back all our gold and silver." Give me the permission. And I'll do the judgment with them. Alexandris. So the same thing like before. Now, they gave him the permission. He says to them, the pasuk says, Moshe b'nei Yisrael, asher yashavu b'Mitzrayim, shloishim shana, v'arba meis shana. The Yidden were in Mitzrayim for 430 years, and they worked in Mitzrayim all this time. Pay us for all this time that Yidden were here in Mitzrayim, and they worked for 430 years. Now, even though Yidden weren't actually in Mitzrayim for 430 years, they were only there for 210 years, and out of that time, the shibud was less than that, but nevertheless, it was enough, and especially the Kaishia shibud that made up for all this time, he was demanding to pay for all this. Alexander give him an answer. Again, they said, give us 3 days. They couldn't find any answer. And again, these Mitzrayim that already came to Eretz Yisrael and were planning on taking over, Miyat hinichus adesem kishen zruis karmen kishen etuis ubarchu, and they ran away. And va'isa shana shvius haisa. This was a Shemitah year. A third time, v'shuv pamachas ba b'nei Yishmael u'b'nei Keturah lodanim Yisrael. The children of Yishmael and Keturah also came to argue with Yidden. Lufnei Alexander Smiktan. Amrullah, and they said to him, Eretz Canaan shalana v'shalachem. Eretz Yisrael belongs to us and to you. We have to share the land. We're also descendants of Avraham Avinu. And Hashem promised him Eretz Yisrael and for his descendants, so we should share the land. Yishmael ben Avraham. Yishmael is the son of Avraham. Yitzchak ben Avraham. Amaleng wie beim Psisel Chachamim tnu l'rishos ve'elach v'adam imoam l'fnei Alexander Smoikte. Im yinatzchuni imru lahem. Het Yeshua nitzachtem. V'im ani yinatzech oisam imru lahem. Teres Moshe Rabbeinu nitzachtechem. Nosnu l'rishos v'halach v'dan imoam. And he came and had the following discussion with him. Amalem, he says to them, Hechanatam mevin raya amru loi minat Torah. Amar lehen af ani le'avi raya ela minat Torah. I'll bring the proof only from Torah. Sheneva, the pasuk says, "Vayitan Avram eskala shaloi liYitzchak." Hashem, Avram, that is, gave everything to Yitzchak for the inheritance. But ulubenei pelakshim ashal Avram nasan Avram matonis. He gave them gifts, but only these gifts. So therefore, Av, a father, shenosan agtin. That's the girsa we have here, or there's other girsas. Av shekasav lekitin. Okay, the father gives lebanav b'chai. He gives a certain gift to one son in his life, and he says, "This is all you're inheriting." He writes him specifically that this is what you get and not anything else. And v'shigir zeh me'al zeh, and he sends away one child from another. Klum yesh l'zeh al zeh klum. Does one have a claim over the other? Avram, when he was still alive, he specifically gave matanis to the bnei Palakshim, which is Yishmael, and therefore you have no tainus, you have no claim on the land. Now the Gemara says, "My matanis." What is the matana that he gave to Yishmael? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Malamed shemaslam shem tumah. He gave them a shame of tumah. Rashi says kishuf and ma'aser shedim. He gave them that power. There's also a discussion in Mefarshim about this. How's Avram giving a name of kishuf to them to use? How could Avram do this? So some say that it doesn't mean that he gave it to them to use. Adarab, he gave them to see what the power of kishuf is, to be able to identify it, to know how to stay away from kishuf. That's really what he gave them. Okay, these are the stories of Dviya ben Pesisa. The last story, the Gemara doesn't finish off that they ran away, but apparently the same thing happened. The Rebbe brought these stories here of Dviya ben Pesisa a number of times when the Rebbe used to speak about Shleimus Aretz, about Eretz Yisrael, and very often the Rebbe would say that you have to say to the Goyim the way it is, what it says in the Bible, what it says in Torah. Exactly by Dviya ben Pesisa, he turned to them and says, where's the source? Where are we going to... Every time in the story here, we're going to take from Torah. So let's look at what it says in the Torah. And this is what it says in the Torah. And the Rebbe would say you have to tell the guy what it says in the Torah, Bereishis bara lekim, and the Rashi of Amar Rabbi Yitzchak regarding Eretz Yisrael. Amalei Antoninis l'Rebbe. Another discussion that's connected to Tchias HaMesim Antoninis, which was a Roman emperor, and he had a close relationship with Rebbe. So he says to Rebbe, Guf and Neshama, both the body and the soul, that they can each explain why they're exempt from any judgment. Ketzad, how? Gufayim, the Guf says, Neshama chatas. It's the Neshama that's in, because Shmiyayim shapirsha mimeni, when the Neshama separates from me, I don't have any part to do anything myself. I don't need mutlak and daimim. Bekever. I'm like a rack that's just buried. Neshama matters. On the other hand, the Neshama says, Guf chat. No, it's the body that sinned. Shmiyayim shapirashti mimenu. From the day that the neshama separates from the guf, hareni parachas ba'avaketzipa. I'm flying in the air like a bird, and I'm not in a body that's able to do these avedas. So who's going to get punished? Amalei. So Rabbi answered, Antoninis emshalachal mashal amad davadaim. I'll give you the following mashal. The melech basav adam shahayle pardes noah, a king that had a beautiful orchard. V'hayabai bichurais nois, and he had beautiful figs in it. And he had two guards in this orchard. Echad chiger, one was lame, vechad suma, and one was blind. So the lame guard says to the one that's blind, I see beautiful figs here in this orchard. Take me, ride me on your shoulders, and we'll bring them here and we'll eat from it. So Rachav chiger al gabi suma, the lame person, guard, is riding on the shoulders of the one that's blind, and ve'viam, and together they brought the figs and ve'achlim, and they ate from the figs of the king's orchard. L'yamim, days later, Baal Pardes, the king, the owner of the orchard, comes and says, Amalan, he says to his guards, where are the beautiful figs here in this orchard? So Amaloi chiger. So the lame person says, Klum yeshli raglaim lahalach ben. Do I have feet that I can walk? It wasn't me. I can't go and take anything. Amalei suma. So the blind guard says, Klum yeshli einayim lidais. Do I have eyes to see? It couldn't have been me. So ma'asa, what did the king do? Hirkiv chige al gabi suma. He put the chigar on top of the suma v'danaisim ke'echad, and he punishes them together. HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe neshama v'zarke beguf. So too the Eibishter at the time of Tchias HaMesim, he brings the neshama and puts it back into the guf, and v'danaisim ke'echad, and he judges them together. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Yikra el hashamayim me'ol v'la'aretz lodin amoy, that he calls from heaven the neshama. El hashamayim me'ol zu neshama v'la'aretz lodin amoy zeh haguf. That's the guf here that he puts them back together, and that's how he judges them. Amalei Antoninis l'Rebbe.
Judge afterwards.
That's what it says here.
After they get up.
Yeah, that's what it says here in the Gemara.
Tchias HaMesim. Maybe
Yeah.
it's after Tchias HaMesim, not after.
When? Yeah.
The person passes away.
But it says here the neshama and the guf together. Amalei Antoninis l'Rebbe. Another question Antoninis asked Rebbe. Mipnei ma chama yotzis b'mizrach v'shekas b'mayrev. Why does the sun rise in the east and set in the west? Amalei, so Rebbe says to Antoninis, what's your question? If it was the opposite, that the sun would rise in the west and set in the east, you would also have this shaila, why it happens in this direction and not in the other? Amalei, so Antoninis explained, this was my question. Why is it setting on the west? The sun could come up in the east, and then it doesn't have to set on the west, it could set on the east as well. Amalei, so Rabbi answers him, the sun is going down towards Mairev because the Shechina is in Mairev, and therefore the sun is bowing. It's bowing down towards the Shechina when it goes down. Shenem, as it says, the Tzva Shemayim l'chom mishtachvim. The sun, which is part of the Tzva Shemayim, bows down to the Eibishter. Amalei, so Antonina says, V'teisi at palgadirikia v'titn shlama v'teil. So let the sun go until half of the sky, not all the way down to Mairev, but just like the derech, when you come to bow to a king, you don't bow all the way coming close to where the melech is. You stand in a distance, and you don't get that close, and that's how you bow down. So over here as well, the sun should come till half of the sky, in the middle of the day, and then it should bow down, and it should set right there. V'teil. Answers the Gemara, not mishum payalim or mishum oivre drachim, but because of the workers that are working, and if in the middle of the day, suddenly, without the sun slowly setting, it would get suddenly dark and the sun would set in midday, or also people that are traveling, and all of a sudden midday, when it's completely bright, and all of a sudden it would set, then it would be very difficult for people in the world, and therefore the Eibishter makes it the sun should set gradually going down to the west. At what point is the neshama placed into the person? Mishas pekida, from the time when the malach is paikid, the tippa, the zera, as soon as there's the beginning of when they conceive, or mishas yitzira, or when there is a beginning of a formation of the existence of the fetus, only then. Amalei mishas yitzira. So Rabbi says it's from the time when there's already beginning of basar v'gidim, when there's a beginning of a formation of a body. So Antonin is asking this. Antonin says, even if you take just a piece of meat and it sits 3 days without being salted, and it will not spoil. So what he was saying was over here as well, if the neshama is not placed in the body until the time of Yitzirah, so then the tippa, that's the source of the life of the fetus, it will be masriach. It will not give any birth. So it has to be that there's already a life that the Eibishter places inside immediately. Amar Rebbe, so then Rebbe said about this, Lamadni Lamdeni Antoninis, this idea of exactly when the neshama comes, that it comes all the way from the beginning. Antoninis taught me, Mikra Messiah, and there's a pasuk that is proof to what he said. Shanemar Uvkudascha Shamra Ruchi. Kudascha refers to the time of Pekida, right at the moment when the Zera comes into the body of the Isha, then when there's the beginning of the pregnancy, that's when the Eibishter gives the Ruach, the life, the spirit. Another thing, Antoninis said to Rebbe, from what time does the Yetzirah come into the person? So, Mishas Yitzirah, again he asked the question, from the time of Yitzirah, when the beginning of the fetus is already formed, or Mishas Yitzia, or is it later, only after the child leaves and is born? Amalei, so Rebbe said, Mishas Yitzirah, from the time of when it's formed still and as a fetus. Amalei, so Antonini said, in Cain, if that's the case, that even still in the beginning of the pregnancy, there's already a Yetzer Hara, so Bayit b'me'ima v'yotze, he would already be kicking in his mother's womb and he would go out. Elo mishas yitziyah. It has to be that the Yetzer Hara is only in the time when it comes out from the mother's womb. Amar Rebbe, so Rebbe said about this, Davazel lamadni Antoninus taught me when the Yetzer Hara comes, Mikra Messiah, and there's a pasuk that's a proof for what he said, Shenema lePesach chatos revitz. Only when he comes out to the opening and he comes into the world, that's when the sin crouches, that's when the Yetzer Hara comes. Now going back to Tchias HaMesim, Reish Lakish asked the following contradiction. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says, Bam, Iver, Upiseach, Harav, Yeledes Yachtov. That when the blessed Lavai, there'll be amongst the Yidden one that's blind, one that's lame, and the one that's pregnant, the one that gives birth, they will all come together. But the pasuk here is saying that even ones that are lame and blind will be there. But in another pasuk it says that Oz Yidalik Ka'ayel, that then you will skip and jump like an ayel. Piseach V'taroin Piseach V'taroin Loshen Ilain. So that even someone that's a Piseach will be able to run. And the l'shayin ilaim, even one that's mute, will have a tongue, will have a mouth to speak. Ki nivku b'midbar mayim u'necholam ba'arava. You'll see even water in a desert and a stream of water in the arava, in a valley. So you see here clearly that lasad lavai, those that were sick and had an issue before, they will be totally healed lasad lavai. But on the other hand, it says no, they'll be iver and piseach. So the answer is, Hakeitzad, Oimdim b'mumam, by Tchias HaMesim, whatever blemish, whatever illness a person had, he will get up with this illness, u'misrapin, and only afterwards will he be healed. Ula Rami, Ula asked the following contradiction. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Bila hamaves lanetzach, death will be swallowed up forever. Umach Hashem dimim malko panav, Hashem will wipe away all tears from the face. So there'll be no death anymore. But Ksiv, in another pasuk it says regarding loss of lavai, Ki anar b'mei shana yomis, that a young lad will die at the age of 100 years old. What does this mean? And misham oil yamim. It won't be anymore this idea of dying of old age, because even when you'll die, a person will be like a young lad that's very strong. But you'll see that there'll be misa, even lasad lavai. And says the Gemara, loikasha can be Yisrael regarding Yidden. It's saying abila mavas lanetzach. But regarding Goyim, that will be lasad lavai, there'll be death, but in this way, by the age of 100, like a nar. But the Gemara asks, Goyim lasad lavai, what are they doing there? So in other words, Gemara is asking that seemingly this will be only a time where Yidden will be, with Tchias HaMesim, but no Goyim. And says Gemara, it's referring to those Goyim that it says, those that will be, the foreigners will come and pasture your sheep, they will be the ones that will plow in your field and will plant your vineyards. Those guys that will be the servants of the Yidden lasad lavai, that's what it's talking about. Rav Chizda asked the contradiction. Ksiv, in one pasuk it says, V'chafra lavano v'isha chama, that both the moon and the sun will be embarrassed, Ki malach Hashem tzvais, because of the greatness of the kingdom of Hashem, which will be so powerful that the light of the moon and the sun will be like nothing, and it will be like an embarrassment. But Ksiv, in another pasuk, it speaks about the greatness of the light of the moon and the sun, because it says that the moon will be like the light of the sun, and then the light of the sun will be 7 times, or really 7 times 7, 40 times 9 times as much. So we see that the light of the moon and the sun will still be very powerful. And says the Gemara, in the times of Yemais HaMashiach, this is the earlier stage, when Mashiach comes, when the Yidden won't have the Shibud Malchus anymore. So then the nature of the light of the moon and the sun will change and it will be very powerful. But Kan Lo'ilam Haba, then at a later time in O'ilam Haba, after Tchias HaMesim, so then the light of the moon and the sun will pale in comparison. It will be like an embarrassment to the great light of the Shekhinah that will be. But the Gemara asks in this, so Shmuel, the Amar, this answer won't be according to Shmuel, because Shmuel says, Ein ben O'ilam Azel, Yemais HaMashiach, el Shibud Malchus Bovad. In the first time period, when Mashiach comes, which is called Yemais HaMashiach, then the only change will be that the Shibud of the Malchus on Yidden will be removed, and Yidden will have the Beis HaMikdash and will do all the mitzvahs, but there'll be no change in nature. So the pasuk where it says that and it'll be an intense light of the moon and the sun, and the nature will change, that can't be talking about Yemais HaMashiach according to Shmuel. Answers the Gemara, kan b'machne tzadikim, kan b'machne shchina. It's in different places, different levels. And the level of machne tzadikim, so there the light of the sun and the moon will be very strong, but in machne shchina, there of the brightness of the shchina, the moon and the sun will have will pale in comparison to the shchina. Rava asked the following contradiction. In one pasuk it says, Ani amis v'achaya. I bring death and I bring life. In another pasuk it says, Machatzti v'ani erpa. That I cause suffering or illness and I will heal. So what does this mean? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, David says, Ma shani meimis ani mechaya. First will be Tchiyas HaMeisim. Which means, like we said before, that after Tchiyas HaMeisim, whatever illness a person had when he passed away, he will get up with that illness. And then another miracle will be that whatever illness he had, he'll be healed. We learned that
that's what appealed to Gvir ben Sisa, the hunchback.
The hunchback. Afterwards, he said he'll be.
That's when he asked that question. He said, "How am I going to come back? Oh, I'm going to come back, but I have my hunchback." Well, then he saw positive aspect.
Yeah. Ani amis v'achaya yachol shetehei misa be'echad v'chayim be'echad. When it says Ani amis v'achaya, not necessarily is this pasuk talking about Tchiyas HaMeisim. You could just simply say that it's saying that the Eibush says, I bring death and I also bring life, like it is with Derech Shalom Naig, that the person dies and a person is born. Talmud Laima, so therefore the continuation of the pasuk says Mochatzti v'ani erpa, that I bring illness and then I heal. Ma v'chitzu refuah be'echa. There it's talking about the fact that the same person that's ill, he gets healed. Af misa v'chayim. So too when it says in the beginning of the pasuk that ani amuz v'chaya, it means that one that it means misa v'chayim be'echa, death and life by the same individual. Nikan shuv v'loimrim. This is a response to those that say that ain't Tchiyas HaMeisim in Torah, that there's no source of Tchiyas HaMeisim in the Torah. This is the pasuk that's the source of Tchiyas HaMeisim. Tanya and another brayse we learned Amar Rav Meir. Where is there a source for Tchiyas HaMeisim in the Torah? The Gemara before already brought different sources. Here's another one. Shenema, the pasuk says, Oz Yashir Moshe Uvnei Yisrael Sashir Azais Lashem. So Shar Loy Nemar, it doesn't use the past tense that he sang. Elo Yashir, he will sing. Mikan the Tchiyas HaMeisim in the Torah. This is the source for Tchiyas HaMeisim that he will sing then. There's a similar thing that we darshan as well. Oz Yivna Yeshua Mizbeach Lashem. It doesn't say that he built in the past. Ela Yivne, he will build. Mikal Tchiyas HaMeisim in Torah, and then he will build a Mizbeach. But the Gemara asks on this drasha, Ela Meyate, if so, Oz Yivne Shloime. When it says that Shloime built a Bama, Lekoma, Shikutz, Mayav. There, when Shloime got married to the daughter of Parei from Mitzrayim, and the pasuk says it's considered like he built a Bama for Avodah Zarah, and it uses the future tense of Yivne, Hachanami de Yivne. Over there, does the word Yivna mean that it'll build in the future? It doesn't mean in the future. It doesn't make sense to say that this is saying about the future on Shlomo HaMelech. Ella, the Gemara says that case is different. Maila olav akosov keilu bana. The reason there it uses the word Yivna is because he didn't actually build a bama. Over there, it's just considered as if he built. That's what the Yivna there means. But over here, though, regarding the Shira that Moshe sang and the Mizbeach that Yeshua built, Moshe Rabbeinu actually sang. And Yeshua actually built a Mizbeach, and still it uses the Lashon Asid of Yashir and Yivneh. Here it means that it's telling us a source of Tchiyas HaMeisim ala Asid Lavei. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi minayin Tchiyas HaMeisim in Torah. Shenema the pasuk says Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha Oid Yehalalucha Sela. So it says Yehalalucha, they will praise you forever. Hilalucha loy nemar. It doesn't use the past tense if they praised you. Ela Yehalalucha. Mikal Tchiyas HaMeisim in Torah. This pasuk in Tilim is the source for Tchiyas HaMeisim. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Kolay Meshir Ba'olam Hazeh. One that praises Hashem and sings to Hashem in this world. Zeiche ve'oimra la'olam haba. He will be zeiche and sing it also la'olam haba. Shenema Ashrei Yeshvei Veisecha. And they are fortunate are those that sit in the house of Hashem and praise Him today. And Oid Yehalalucha Sela. They will come and sing to you also in the future. What's the source of Tchiyas HaMeisim? The pasuk says, Shenemar Koil Tzefayich Nasu Kol Yachtav Yiranenu. The voice of the Tzefayich, the Nevi'im that see the future, and they say that together you'll get up and we'll sing today. Yiranenu. It says Rinenu Leinemar. It doesn't say that they sang in the past. Yiranenu. They will sing in the future. Mikan L'Tchiyas HaMeisim in Torah. This is also a source for Tchiyas HaMeisim. One more thing, on this pasuk, Hasidin, Kol HaNevi'im, Kulan, Loy Mashira B'Koil Echad. All the Nevi'im together, L'Asad Lavai, will sing with one voice. As it says, Koil Tzefayech, the voice of your Nevi'im, Nosu Kol Yachtav Yiranenu. Their voice together, they will sing for Hashem.